One is a lot of the proactive marketing that went on didn't happen the last couple of years. If you were a revenue manager or a marketer the last couple of years, you were king or queen no matter what you did almost. It's just times are really, really good. So that means, people forgot about, investment in direct revenue, whether that means marketing, PPC, or otherwise. It also means conversion, both offline and online. Those things everybody just got rich and did well over the last couple of years. Then this down market came. Any sort of really down market since 2008.
You're listening to another episode of Straight Fire VR, the news podcast that provides an unfiltered insider look at the world of vacation rentals. We break down the trends, technology, and the players that make the industry tick. In the line of fire today, we have both Michelle Marquis and Jeff Robertson, co-founders and chief revenue at Shortcuts. Holding the line is our co-host Miriam Ramsey, regional director of business development at V-Trips. I'm Heather Macias Milo, executive producer at Straight Fire VR. Today, our panel will tackle the easy revenue ride of 2021 and 2022, the end to the endless summer school breaks, and the good, the bad, and the ugly OTA players. Armed with the latest information on what is driving the market today, we have our host, Steve Milo. Steve, when you are ready, fire at will.
All right. Well, I always start this by having a warning to LinkedIn virtue signalers that for them, because we're going to be talking directly. Sometimes we're going to have to say some negative things, but in part, that's how you learn. You have to learn from mistakes. So it was kind of easy in 2021 and 2022 to get bookings for property managers. And obviously you and Jeff have started a new firm to help companies with marketing. What are the bad habits that companies have gotten into with all that easy demand that happened in 2021 and 2022 that in some cases resulted in them missing their numbers in 2023?
A few different things. One is a lot of the proactive marketing that went on didn't happen the last couple of years. If you were a revenue manager or a marketer the last couple of years, you were king or queen no matter what you did almost. It's just times are really, really good. So that means, people forgot about, investment in direct revenue, whether that means marketing, PPC, or otherwise. It also means conversion, both offline and online. Those things everybody just got rich and did well over the last couple of years. Then this down market came. And the truth is the vacation rental industry hasn't seen any sort of really down market at all since 2008. It's been up, 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 and you were a hero no matter what you did. And now we go, oh, wait a minute. What do we do? What do we need to do differently? Well, a lot of the people that are in sales and marketing right now in our industry weren't here back when it was tough and you were building the businesses. So those are a few of my thoughts.
So Jeff, I'm curious, because you've been in the industry for quite some time. There are a lot of people who weren't in the industry in 2008, 2009, 2010, when we had a massive housing crisis, high unemployment, a drop in consumer spending, companies that literally ran out of cash and went out of business. How do you talk to people who have never been through a down cycle? And how do you get them to understand that, they're going to have to change their way if they're going to be able to survive and thrive in kind of a new reality set?
Thanks, Steve. It's great to be here. It's, there's an old saying about, to truly learn, you need to go through the trials yourself. And I think some of that is at play here. But one of the most effective ways that I've found to help people understand history and past and learn from experiences through stories, and being able to share some of those case studies or those specific examples from my past, working with property managers or suppliers or even from my even further past before I got into vacation rentals, in the consumer side of marketing, and sharing those stories and making sure that there's a really clear moral of that story. I found those are really the most effective ways to convince people that, gosh, there's something here that's meaningful to your business, and connecting. I guess the last part, obviously, is connecting that story with the current situation in our marketplace, whether it's a locale, the country, or business specific.
So Miriam, I know you've had some challenges with marketing in your area. Look at her smiling. She can't wait to talk. We have definitely seen marketing where we used to do much more, I would say, targeted emails for PPC or promotions, and that kind of fell to the wayside. So tell me how it used to be and what it needs to be effective.
So, I mean, you're right. Like, I was sitting here and while Michelle was speaking, I was like, she nailed it. And I think this is a really good topic, because I'm going to hit on us as a brand. And again, this is why we are Straight Fire, because we're going to nail it out. V-Trip struggled, especially in my market. We had 3 marketing directors ago. She had been through the 08. She had done the email campaign. She pushed the PPC. She done all the things that made us have very good numbers, because she had went through the downtime. She knew what she was doing. You had that turn. So again, I could have sold a dumpster in 2021 and 2022, right? I mean, it was going to book. I could set it out in the front yard. We were taking reservations. Well, then you had this turn, as Michelle said. We had some new marketing folks come in, and I had a really hard conversation in February with our marketing team, where I was like, what the hell are we doing? I said, we're spending no money on PPC. I get on, I can't find us on the Google ads, different things that where's our email campaign? Where is our target base? When I'm in business development and I'm asking, the VP of marketing and the VP of other things, hey guys, what is our return? What is our pay-per-click numbers looking like? And you have crickets. Like, that's a huge disconnect from the market base that we've seen. So like Michelle's right, anybody that had that turn and that marketing experience prior to and that down, right? But if you look, and this is probably terrible to say, but if you looked on LinkedIn right now, a lot of individuals are newer marketers that are looking for jobs, because the market is different. They are not used to the generational gap of what we are seeing from the bookings that are coming in. I mean, look, I couldn't do it. And Michelle, I know you're ready to go on that, because am I wrong? I mean, you know,
I've got some things to say.
Go, you can go. Let's go ahead and hit back into you.
Well, no, some of the things we're talking about are, what we used to do, but that doesn't mean there aren't things that are new. Just because I've been around the block a few times doesn't mean I also don't pay attention to what can be done, well, in a lot of different avenues. But in the end, here's 3 things that any company can do for more revenue. Just 3. Okay, you guys, there's 3. There's more leads, which means more people having eyeballs on your inventory. So there are a lot of different ways to do that, whether that means OTA, whether that means on your website, whether that means once they're on their website, the next thing you're going to do is convert. Okay, so it's more leads, more eyeballs, conversion. How do you get them to actually complete the sale? And third is stay value. And stay value is going to depend on, which channel you use, frankly, because, a hotel style OTA is going to have a lower ADR than, a Vrbo or an Airbnb is. So those are the 3 things. Social media can help with that. Having not a mobile friendly, but a mobile first website. I think the number is like 70% of bookings made on an OTA site come from the mobile use, not the desktop use. So there's a bunch of things that are still even modern day that are proactive that need to get done, that the experience and the results haven't been there. because we have a lot of new people in our industry that haven't had to, I had
Work for it. It was easy.
It was
I mean,
totally easy. It was totally easy. But now you have to do like, you got to go over the bush, around the bush, or through the bush. You got to just figure it out. And the experience isn't there to just figure it out.
Yes, absolutely. And I would offer that it's never changed. And I think the best marketers are rooted in data and analytics, but have a sensibility for branding, for perception, and understanding sort of the psychology side of it, because they can work hand in hand. It's a necessity these days. There's so much data now available for us, not just the old Google AdWords and online data, but now there's intent data. There's AI coming out that's going to help predict personalization on your website, for example. That's all data driven, and understanding, being able to collect and compile all of these ridiculous touch points that you think as a standalone would never mean one thing, but boy, collectively and together, it's kind of what, it's one of the things I was initially really excited about with Navis back in the day when I first got into the business. Navis had figured out a way to collect all of this incredibly valuable information that was publicly available, but not yet tapped into through phone lines. And the data and insights that a system, a software like Navis or Track Pulse that can provide that visibility and that data, oh my God, does that change your takeaway from what in your direction, in your decision making about what's going to be the most valuable thing we can do as a marketing team to drive more guests and do that directly. So yeah, data is there's so many data science degrees now that are being offered through Cornell, through Harvard, through MIT. I get these solicitations often. And it's by no coincidence. I mean, the data side of things is now a necessity for any excellent marketer.
So Michelle, as you're assessing companies and whether they have the right staff member, obviously, other than asking them or not, other than asking, questions of do they like math? Don't you also take a look at things like, okay, show me the type of emails you're sending out. What is the segmentation? Do you have a promotional calendar? Your PPC spend, is it with a web agency? What type of conversations do you have with the web agency? Are they an industry one or are they non-industry? I mean, are you having these conversations? Because it's got to be bizarre when you get some of the answers.
Yeah.
I have a question for Jeff. So Jeff, now is the time when you start to look at these marketing people, and there's a difference between kind of brand marketing, soft skills, brand images, those type of things, and analytical skills. Yeah. Are we moving back to a period where people in your marketing group need to have analytical skills? Because everything that Michelle and Miriam are talking about is that you need to be analytics driven.
It's really funny because I was on a call with somebody yesterday, and no, that wasn't yesterday. It was this morning at 7 a.m. And there's a lot of blank stares around all of those things. There's also, especially in like the hybrid market, so hotel, vacation rental, they have a little of both inventory, where they have people that have more of a hotel way to analyze market and send information to, like, segmenting emails would be a great example, that are not even close to what the sort of segmentation the vacation rental industry needs. So I think again, back to the last 4 years, people we've hired, everybody can be a hero now. And, if I was a marketer in the last 5 years and I was in this industry, what I would do is just go send myself to back to the basics, 101. What are some of the things what else should I be doing? Right. I just saw a posting from Valerie. Trying to blank on her last name, with Juniper. She went from a 9% direct booking to 55% direct booking. And, she posted, she has it all on her online. She posted in LinkedIn the 4 things she did to do that. And you guys, they're all basics, but they're back to basics. And some of them are like literally guerrilla marketing. They are like, what else can I do? And, she did a great job. And I think she said in 6 months from 9% to 55% direct bookings. So she's clearly, she's new to the industry, but she got in and figured it out.
Correct. She done the legwork and the homework and dug in, where again, everyone's had it easy and they're, oh, well, we don't know what's happening. But she did the legwork. And that's right. The difference. And that's what we're seeing.
Yeah.
So Jeff, I wanted to ask you a question, because we bought quite a few companies at late 2021 and 2022, and they swore by these web marketing companies. They would create a website for you. They'd run your PPC. They'd do your email. And, the owner said, these people are incredible. And, we started to dig in, we started to ask questions, we started to look at conversion, and it was pretty horrifying. I'm curious, because again, I'm sure you're getting tons of calls because everybody's revenue is down. What do you think is the reason that everybody went so far in with these web marketing companies, who in some cases just aren't really strong at PPC or segmentation or database management?
I think it's convenience, really, because tides were so high and floating most or all boats. It was easy to let things run without digging in too much detail or understanding the metrics one way or the other. So, I think being able to have now, I think the current macro market situation, economic, in our industry, the supply and occupancy dynamics, all of them are driving the need. Now people are scrambling because they perhaps rested on their laurels a little too much, and were willing to take the advice that they were getting. Most businesses that I've interacted with in our industry, most are smaller in size, or average size, I'd say. And one common thing I found across all of those businesses is there's just not enough time in the day to get to everything that needs to happen, particularly in a profit-constrained industry like ours. You can't be overstaffed. Labor is such an important and big piece, typically, of the pie, of the expense pie. So I think convenience and interest in driving profitability and riding the wave were probably all important reasons why people perhaps didn't dig in as much as they should have to really uncover the truth.
Yeah. And, I'd like to add to that a little bit. And that is that, when you own a property management company, you need to know, operations, you need to know accounting, you need to know marketing, you need to know sales, you need to know how to get more homeowners, you need and every one of those is a deep expertise. So if you are a property manager and you're running your business or own your business, you can't be an expert in every one of those things. You're probably really good in one area. So I think a piece of it is, yes, it's time, but it's also, wow, I met with so-and-so and they know this much more than I do. They are so good. They are so smart because I don't know anything about this piece of my business. So something is better than what they currently have. And then they get an uptick of this and they're thrilled because they don't know anything about it. So I think that's a piece of the marketing picture. And there are a lot of really good marketers in our industry. But nobody will care about your business like you do. So Steve, you're very fortunate that you're large enough. You can hire the best of the best to work in each of these areas. Not all companies can do that.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask Miriam, because she's been on Escapia, V12, and now Track from TNS, which everyone is familiar with. Each of those systems had different components, and we're going to be talking about this in our next episode. But Track was the most raw, right? It didn't have the tools that V12, which had been around for 15 plus years, Wyndham had been on, Escapia, which is, I think, one of the breakthrough products of the industry. I mean, literally, Chris Kemp, who designed it, went on to be CTO of NASA, and Melissa Yang, went on to do great things as well. So, Miriam, I know that you've spent a lot of time now with Amber Carpenter trying to figure out some of the things that we can do with this open API to improve the segmentation of emails. It looks like she's had some breakthroughs there, but how much of this, Miriam, is because the tools we had just weren't adequate enough to do the type of segmentation that we all needed to do?
I think it goes both ways. A lot of it, when you're trying to pull that data and you have a software that's not providing that, correct? So then having someone who knows, hey, the AI feeds, let's pull the Google Analytics. Amber's been in the industry 20 plus years. So it goes back to the initial conversation of having that data, being able to read and then seeing the diversity of the market changing and going back. You're right. I've been on all three softwares. Escapia by far has been my favorite. Then to the V12. Track, let's be honest, we're getting there, right? We're having to build and add. And again, when you're on a software that you need that information pulled, it's hard. Look at it. We see it across the board in different things where you have data, but if you're having to spend and use additional resources to add into that, that is a huge disconnect and a pullback across the board from us. So I need to get back.
So I want to kind of talk next about some of what I consider to be a false narrative, which led some people down the wrong path. And this was book direct, right? This was this mantra to book direct. And this was somehow you were going to be better as a company if you got out of your dependency on OTAs. And again, when everything is great and the sun is shining, book direct works, right? Because there's more demand than supply and people will go to your direct site. The problem is what happens when there's less demand and more supply, and people, are looking at different OTAs like Airbnb, Expedia, Booking.com, Google Travel, etc. Michelle, how did this happen? How did people shout up at the top of the mountain, book direct? You were somehow, this virtue signaling that was going on. This really hurt companies that stopped doing business with some of these OTAs because they needed that business this summer.
Yeah. Well, and, I have a lot of thoughts about this, including the OTAs, okay, the distribution sites use things like, have you had inventory on? And have you converted well historically to show? So if you just shut them off, it's going to take you a while to get them to flow back again, right? So that's a big problem. The other thing is that, we have a branding problem. The vacation rental industry has a branding problem. As a matter of fact, my daughter and I got into a big debate about Airbnb, and I was telling her, I'm like, well, the problem is that Airbnb is a distribution channel and the inventory is owned either by individuals or property managers. And there's a difference when you book those. And she goes, Mom, it doesn't matter. There's no way you're going to be able to change that for your industry. Whether I'm on VRBO or Airbnb, or I book direct, because she does know the difference, of course, that she gets a better price when she goes direct. She says, I still am staying in an Airbnb. No matter what, I'm still staying in an Airbnb. Well, that means, you guys, that the eyeballs, right, need to be in front of your brand more often. So when let's go back to the book direct for a minute. The book direct is, in my opinion, one piece of an overall distribution strategy. And when I say distribution strategy, I don't mean OTA strategy. I mean, book direct, okay, online, offline. There's a bunch of different ways you can do that. But distribution also means can you go after some Smurf business? And for those of you, those are not little blue people. Smurf is social, military, educational, religious, fraternal. They stay in vacation rentals, whether you're, baseball tournaments, that sort of thing. And then you can go to OTAs. And so it needs to be a balanced approach year round. And you can do that through availability, through pricing, so that you're still showing up on the OTAs, but maybe you've done something in your pricing to make it more attractive to stay with you direct, but you're still showing up on the OTAs. And I also believe book direct is not always the cheapest channel. Like, for example, in Orlando, if you book direct and you're using PPC, your cost per click is probably somewhere around $350, $375. It's probably costing you $75 to get a reservation. Well, if you look at that compared to an OTA and what your costs are there, and you mark it up a little bit to cover those costs, which really is the most expensive? So you've got to understand, again, it's a channel strategy. It's a distribution strategy that is then balanced with inventory and rates, and segment by time of year and what it costs you to get that business.
So Jeff, I'm curious, because there's clearly a billboard effect, right? Anybody can Google what a billboard effect is. Why would people go direct as opposed to taking the OTAs, marking them up, at least having the billboard effect? And then if you mark them up, you can cover the costs. And as Michelle said, it might even be cheaper than booking direct. How did this get so miscommunicated in this industry that you should not use OTAs, or that it was somehow bad to use OTAs?
As Mom always said, moderation is key. So it's unfortunate. I think our industry suffers a little bit from a macro societal thing that I've been witnessing, and that's going to extremes. The division, whether it's politics, whether it's social things. I mean, the divergence in our society has been extraordinary to watch over the last 10 years or so, maybe longer, 15. But I think as it relates to vacation rentals and thinking through, a mix is the way to go. I think there was such a drumbeat for direct bookings that divergence happened, and people started focusing too much on booking direct. Our industry situation for the past few years fostered that, because there was so much demand. Supply hadn't caught up yet, like it has in the last year or so. It was easy. It was easy to go direct. And from a marketing, from a branding standpoint, booking direct obviously is I think a much better way to communicate and deliver on the experience of what a vacation is supposed to be like, and why people go on them. So, I do think it's a mix. I do think it's a bit of our society swinging from one extreme to the other. Stick down the middle, work with a balance. You're going to benefit from that billboard effect in getting some access to additional eyeballs, while you're also driving bookings and filling occupancy across your portfolio. It's an interesting dynamic for sure.
Miriam, in your market, there's a couple people that are LinkedIn virtue signaling all the time about booking direct. Does it look silly now at this point that they're still posting about social media like Facebook and things like that, and not agreeing to, start the list with Airbnb or Booking.com or Expedia?
It is. I mean, and I'm glad you went and come to me, because this is what people don't understand, that the book direct is a great thing. And look, we need to drive that traffic, but here's what I'm going to tell everybody, from everyone on the call to everyone who listens. The suppliers will continue to book on the OTAs, especially Airbnb, because they will give them 100% refund if they're not happy. And again, it may be $50, $60 cheaper on the front end to book direct, but if you get to a house and you've booked through Airbnb, you get a refund. Whether it's 60, 70, 100% of your stay, you're getting it back. And so as a property manager, we all know this. Steve and I, our first episode was about this. And so again, the OTAs will continuously grow if they have that performer of the stance that Airbnb has. And so again, we need to book direct, we need to have the PPC, we need to do the things. However, the OTAs will continuously perform. And Brian Harris, we had a few weeks ago back, he said he outlines, he puts his on the Airbnb, but then he pulls the majority of his traffic back to his direct site. And that's great if you can sustain that.
So Michelle, I'm just curious because, some of these people are smart that do this virtue signaling, but they're not smart enough to figure out why not just mark these channels up, right? Why not mark Airbnb up more than what it costs, right? It costs 3%. If you're directly integrated, maybe another couple points if you're using a channel manager. We mark them up to 15%, in part because of the tax issue, in part because the extenuating circumstance. Why not just mark these OTAs up, and then if they book, you tell the customer the next time book direct to save money? Michelle, how do people miss this? It just seems so obvious.
Well, Steve, I'll take it a step further. And that is, what would make any property manager think that there is zero cost to sale to any booking they get? Okay, so if you mark it up, you're saying, I'm not willing to pay for any marketing for this piece of business, right? You're marking it up to cover the costs. But the truth is, you don't mark up your rates to cover someone who's in reservations or the cost you have to pay your marketing agency for your website. Those are all acquisition costs. So, every property manager has to do what's right for their business. Some say I'm going to cover the whole cost. Some say this is the pain in the ass factor. I'm going to cover more than the cost because they're just a pain in the ass to work with, and I'm going to make it worth it to me. But in the end, it is ridiculous not to just not do a channel or be pissed off that you have to do a channel because there's commissions. Either know your acquisition costs and expect to pay the acquisition costs, or mark it up to cover whatever the difference is. But you got to have a balanced effect or a balanced plan, period.
So Jeff, I want, again, this just sounds so obvious, I know, but let's assume right now we all believe you have to use OTAs. How important is it to manage these OTAs, to have things like monthly and quarterly meetings where you hold them accountable? How important is that communication? Because we deal with a couple large OTAs, and during COVID, they eliminated those quarterly meetings. And then I had to escalate to senior management and say, hey, look, the COVID, shutdowns are over. We need to get back to quarterly meetings. How important is this to holding their feet to the fire?
Clearly very important, for sure. A couple thoughts come to mind as I think about the OTA partners. I know just from, attending industry events and seeing presentations from Vrbo or Airbnb, some of the data insights that they have about your local area, what amenities are being searched for in different markets. I remember John Suzuki doing a great presentation at a past ResFest about some of the really important, private hot tub became a really, really important keyword to list homes on in a particular market. It's a long way of saying that, staying on top of those relationships with the channels that you choose to do business with is just essential. Not only to hold them accountable, to make sure that the investments you're making in their channels are paying off for you and running the numbers, but also in leveraging their insights and data about the markets. And the stronger relationship you have there, what I've heard is the better chances you've got of getting the attention and understanding some of those intricacies and the data that might help you be a even more successful operator in your local market.
Yeah. So Miriam, I'm sure you're aware there's some OTAs that have come into this industry that are newish, and they always convince us, please list us, we're going to do all this business. and yet then they tie up a lot of resources. How important is it? And I apologize to Homes to Go. Last episode, I said they were one of the ones we were getting rid of. It was Holiday. So bad on me. Homes to Go is actually producing some revenue.
Listen, I got times when you said it because I was like, I don't think that's right, but heck, maybe I'm wrong.
It was Holiday and Hopper.
You probably had them just peeing their pants a little bit.
I was like, they gave me the cutest dog toys for Sadie Grace. Like, we can't do this.
So Miriam, go ahead.
I think a lot of times and listen, it's not just, it's a branding thing, right? I think everyone gets sold on the new Kool-Aid, but and then they have the conversations, you sign up, and then you look at it in 5 to 6 months. But again, it goes down to being able to pull the data from our software to see what we're actually tracking in. And that is key. It all goes back to the beginning of the conversation with Michelle and John. Well, Jeff, this is what you have to do. You have to be the analytical side of the marketing aspect. Take those first, bring on those new OTAs or whatever it is, but track it. You should know within the first 90 days, is this going to be a good partnership for you long term, or do we need to go ahead and pump the brakes and move on? We didn't make it 90 days.
So Michelle, I have to ask you, because I know you're looking under the hood now. You have these companies, they're desperate. I mean, things went badly. Some are facing some bleak prospects, and they're saying, Michelle, help us. In some cases, you're looking at them having like 10 OTAs, and you're actually looking at the numbers, and only 5 are even producing any revenue. How is it that people drink all this Kool-Aid, don't look at their numbers, and continue to pour resources and time and effort in some of these OTA channels that just produce almost no revenue? How is this possible if you're looking at your numbers? I mean, we got rid of another one. Marriott Home and Villas was on 2 of our versions of Track. It was a joke how little volume they produce. So, I mean, and I mean, there were a couple others, everybody loves it when I name names, but I've named Hopper and Holiday as well. So how is it that people aren't looking at their numbers? How are they not figuring out the actual resource costs of these little tiny channels?
Well, so here's the funny thing, Steve. I'm meeting with people that actually went all in on direct and never did distribution. More than a few that I have met with literally only did one distribution avenue and nothing else. So like, that's the lowest hanging fruit with some of the people I'm working at, including what they're doing in their reservation sales center. But I look at long tail distribution a little bit different. Okay. And a piece of that is that if they're easy, okay, so I'm not talking about you have a ton of API issues. I'm not talking about taxes don't match. I'm not talking about their cancellation fees are ridiculous. But if you can get, let's say it's 20 bookings a year from a long tail term that costs you less money, I'm not against that. Now, if you are using a direct integration, let's say it's with 8 different distribution channels, I know that's a heavy lift. That's a really heavy lift. And you should absolutely go, what's the 80-20 rule? Or really it's a 20-80 rule. What is the 20% that gets you the 80%, and double down on that? And even if that means looking at your listing sites and make them better advertising, because really a listing on an OTA is a little piece of advertisement. That's all it is, right? It's like being at the grocery store, and are you at the end cap? Are you top shelf? Or are you down here at the bottom? So that would be another way to make sure that your 2080 is even producing more, is be better at those distribution avenues. And then you can feel really confident getting rid of anything that takes you too much time.
I think Michelle is being kind with 80-20. I think it's more like 95-5 from what I've seen. But
You're probably right. You're probably right. But that's not the old adage.
I mean, right. Well, look, I get that there's some OTAs that in certain markets do really well, like niche markets. So Miriam, SmokyMountains.com, has been great in Gatlinburg, right? You know Dave Anagati very well, although he sold the company now to Guesty. I guess he can announce that. But that channel does really well in our market, right?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's one of the top 3 OTAs. I mean, initially it was top 2. It is seeing a little bit less traffic. But you're not, I mean, again, it goes back to my market, SmokyMountains.com is going to do great. And another market that's not going to be a platform to use in it. You know, they started the Panhandle or something, I don't know, in Florida. We're not going to be there. However, do what you know. And I think a lot of times, like Homes to Go was really good. You know, it's the pet friendly. That's what they push. It's going back to the basics. Push and drive your channel of what you know and can do best and move on to something else. Leave this big circle that everyone uses. Let someone else play ball. Again, it goes back to make it easy. Do what you know.
Right. So Jeff, I think that what we were saying is test and verify, right? So we're probably going to test Agoda. We had a lot of problems with them a couple of years ago. We cut them off. They are really huge in certain parts of the world, Asia in particular. So we're going to test them again. My question to you is with OTAs, because you kind of alluded to this, and so did Michelle, in terms of managing them and communicating with them and doing promotions. How important also are deposit policies and cancellation policies in terms of driving business from OTAs? And could it be that you just don't have the right deposit policies or cancellation policies to maximize the results?
Yeah, I'm really glad you pivoted and brought this side of it up, because the error is not in trying. The error is in not cutting your losses as quickly as you can, because there is a lot of new, interesting technology, services, those types of things out there. And if they've got good stories of proof about how they've been helping others, then that's usually a pretty good sign that if you think it's going to work for your business, it's worth at least giving it a try. Those revenue management policies, cancellation policies, deposit amounts, all of those are inextricably linked to conversion rate. And they are important levers to be able to pull and test for your market and the folks that you're trying to attract, that visit your area, that stay in your properties. So having really good visibility and understanding of the differences between all of these levers across the multitude of channels that you may or may not use, I think is just essential for running the math, understanding the ROI, and identifying if there are some policies that just don't work for you and your business, or that others that are, are critical. If those aren't available from a particular channel in your area, then they may not be the best channel for you to invest your time in.
Yeah. And
so we're
Jeff,
going to get to the lightning. Oh, go ahead, Michelle.
All right. I was just gonna say, Jeff, do you agree that in some scenarios, property managers actually need to look like it is not 2000 where you could say it's a 30-day cancellation policy. You're going to pay me all the money up front. It's just not like that today. As a matter of fact, it is more hotel-like than it's ever been. And I don't think that's going to change. The expectation of the consumer is going to demand more flexibility. So it also means property managers should look at things a little differently, right?
Absolutely. And something that, it's easy, I think, for a lot of people to get myopic and just focus on their little area and their little business. But I think it's important to consider consumer behavior. And there's a name for this particular concept, and I can't remember now the actual name, but I got the concept down, because it's this notion that a consumer's best digital experience now becomes the norm and expectation of every digital interaction that consumer has. So the fact that Airbnb spends billions of dollars on their UI and UX, usability, branding, along with all of these other incredible companies that invest so much into their marketing effort and product, those are now all becoming expectations from the guests that we're all pursuing as well. And I know most businesses in this industry don't have billions of dollars to invest in their product, their website, their mobile experience, but man, that stuff's really, really important. And as those things change from guests and consumers, it's important that as property managers and business leaders, it's important we understand all of those and can continue to shift and align with where the market is and what's going to be important for driving financial success in your business.
Okay, we're heading to the lightning round. I'm going to ask each of you for one tip to share with our listeners. So, Michelle, you're first.
Okay. I'm looking through all of my notes. Probably the thing that if I was running a property management company, probably the lowest hanging fruit is going to be website conversion. So, you know, if you have a good website, you know, what is it, a 0.5% conversion? So that means there's a whole lot of opportunity there. And I think the opportunity is in the mobile booking experience. So if I was going to do one thing and one thing only, that's probably where I would put my money.
Miriam.
So me, analytical marketer. If that's not what you're hiring, you are not going to be successful.
Yeah.
I want to talk about social media for a minute. I know it's been, you know, there's been this massive pursuit to try and monetize social media beyond just branding, but it's coming. It will be here soon. There are some new technologies that are being worked on right now around social media booking engines, for example. Social media is a natural extension of the experience that we are all trying to provide our guests. And choosing media, video, can be a really important way. I learned at this last Verma Executive Summit down in Palm Beach that the Stitchers in their business, social media has now become one of their top 3 booking sources out of all of the many booking channels that they use. Very impressive. And it really opened my eyes to what's possible. And I think they're just scratching the surface. I expect social media will play a much more significant role in bookings in our industry going forward.
Okay, my tip is trigger emails. It's the lowest hanging fruit, right? Abandoned cart, right? Michelle's smiling. Abandoned cart, having multiple abandoned cart emails, including maybe at the last one with a slight discount to book that property, and then also rebook for next year, right? Retargeting the day after they leave, 30 days after they leave, 6 months after they leave, 9 months after they leave, rebook as long as it's available on the calendar. Let them be able to rebook that property. So I hope people thought this was a good, worthwhile episode. I appreciate the candor that all of you have. We appreciate Heather for producing this episode. And our website is straightfirevr.com, or you can email us at straightfirevr@gmail.com. Thank you again.